First thing we're going to do is go to our CS First class. And then click on Art. And we're just moving on to the next one here, Building Blocks of Architecture. Click Start. I'll do the survey. I'll just go down to the introduction. And as usual, all we need this for is to get our architecture starter project. So we're going to open that up, click the remix. Hopefully you are signed in. If you're not signed in, it won't let you do the remix. And now we can rename it the same way we have been. Apparently I can't type this morning. Okay, so the point of today's project is to get us used to using some more commands, some ones we haven't used yet. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part of it is to get us to be able to use these building blocks up here at the top to create our own structures. So currently, if I grab one of those and bring it down, that's the only dome that I could use on my structure. So could I create a structure? Sure. But it's not going to be a very nice structure, especially if we're trying to make a building, if we can only use these shapes one time. So that's kind of what the whole point of this is. To create it so that we can reuse these shapes multiple times. Now, a lot of architects won't use something so rudimentary as this, but a lot of them will use pre-designed shapes in order to create a building, kind of get a rough design of how they want to do a building. They obviously don't go out and build it right on the spot and just make it up as they go. They have blueprints that go into it, but sort of the first steps of it is like a roughing in stage, where they don't have all the actual measurements or anything. They just kind of create a building design that they would like to see happen. So, since I don't want to do this to where I can drag this down and only use it one time, what I need to do is create a copy of it, basically. So the whole point, or the way to do that would be to create a clone, because it creates the exact same copy each time. So if I go into events, I'll start with when this sprite is clicked. It says I'm currently in domes, and whenever a dome is clicked, if I go down to control, I can then do create a clone of myself. Now, anytime I click that sprite, see how I bring it down and drop it? As soon as I let go of it, it creates a clone. And I have this series of clones that have been created. It kind of doesn't stop, and it keeps going through the same process again. Also, you'll notice that my dome isn't up here anymore. That's because I have to drag it back up in order to make it work. Click the stop sign, it makes them all go away. So that's nice and everything, being able to do that. But when you create so many clones of something, it actually makes the program slow way down. So if I was to actually like create this building and I was doing it three-dimensional, so that I'm doing all four sides of a building, and I get to a point where I want to run a program to make it do like a 360-degree view of the building, the fact that I would have so many clones created in this way would create a problem because it wouldn't want to do the 360-degree view. It uses up so much of the computer's memory to create all these different clones like that, in this fashion anyways, that it would make it hard to do like a 360-degree view or anything like that. So it really would bog your computer down. Also, if you'll notice, whenever I click on this and drop it, now I have all these different clones showing up here because it keeps creating clones of itself over and over again. That's no fun. So like if I just click on this clone and drag it out, now it's creating a clone of itself every time I'm doing this. And each clone can create a clone of itself. And so it just creates a huge issue. So what we want to do is we want to make it so that we can kind of control these clones a little bit as well. I'd like to make it so that I never bring the dome down from the top, so that even if I click on it and want to drag it down here, I still have a dome up here. I don't have to put it back when I'm done. So we're going to start this off as when I start as a clone. So now I'm starting a new command that says I'm going to click this, it's going to create a clone, so that now whenever it starts as a clone, something's going to happen. So whenever I click it, I want it to just go to the mouse pointer. I don't want to have to click and drag it. I just want it to come with the mouse pointer down to here, and then I'll drop it by clicking. So we'll click motion, drag out a go-to block, and instead of random position, we'll do mouse pointer. So now I click this, it's getting ugly now. And it's doing the same thing that it had been before, where it goes to the mouse pointer at that moment. So first I'm going to put in another control because I don't want it to immediately go to it. I'll make it wait 0.1 seconds. And if you remember from before, whenever we did the graffiti project, we didn't just have a go to mouse pointer. Does anybody remember what code we used in order to make it follow the mouse around? What building block would we have to use for that? I have to drop a forever loop in there. That way it's consistently following the mouse pointer around. So I click it and now it's following it. I don't have to drag it. It's just sticking with it. So putting that forever loop in there makes it so that it's following my mouse pointer around. I'm not creating clones with every time I click it, and it creates a nicer flowing program. However, our new issue is I click this and it follows it around. It doesn't matter what I click now. It's not dropping. So we fixed the situation, but we created another problem. By putting this forever loop in, it follows my mouse forever, just like the graffiti did. But at some point I want to be able to make it let go. So we're going to put a repeat until block here. So this is a new block that we haven't used yet. And we're going to put go to mouse pointer. Now we have to put a conditional in here, which a conditional just means that if something happens, we can either make it continue or stop. So one good way to illustrate a conditional statement is like if I call your name and you answer, I usually am not going to keep calling your name. But if I call your name and you never answer, I'm probably going to keep calling your name, especially if I need you for something. Like if my arm's trapped under a desk or something and I can't get it out. I'm going to keep calling your name until you respond. That's kind of like how a repeat until code works. I'm going to keep calling your name until you respond. So this is going to keep going to the mouse pointer until the mouse is down. Which means when I click the mouse, then my clone will stop following the mouse pointer. So I click this, it's now following my mouse pointer around the thing, and when I click, it should stop. When I click, it stops, and so on. Lastly, each time I do this, I want it to create a stamp. So we're going to go into pen and do a stamp. Now you'll notice the last portion of this is that after I stamp it, I have one problem left, and that's that it keeps following my mouse pointer around. So once I click, it creates this stamp, then my clone keeps following the mouse pointer. Let's erase all of this. So because it keeps following my mouse pointer, I want to get rid of that feature. So my last part of this code is going to be after I stamp it, I want to delete that clone so it stops following the mouse pointer. Click it. Maybe. You're just following that process now. Follows the mouse pointer. Now if I want to grab the dome again, just click it, it follows the mouse, and drop it. Creates a stamp, the clone that's attached to this disappears, and we're done with it. The last portion of this is going to be, and this is kind of part of your assignment heading forward. Now today you don't get an assignment, but on Monday we have parent-teacher conferences. So on Monday you are going to have an assignment that's based off of today's lesson. So you're going to create this entire code, and you'll see down at the bottom here it says backpack. We've never looked at the backpack before. Basically the backpack creates a scenario where we can now put things into our backpack and unpack them for later. So I'll show you what I mean by that. If I click this command, and I drop it into the backpack. You see it's now down in here. That script is in there, and I can drop this one in there as well. So my goal is not to have this occur one time or to only work for the dome. I want this entire process to work for each one of these shapes. I wouldn't want to have to redo this code every time for one of these shapes. I want them all to work exactly the same. So that's where our backpack comes in handy. We can drop that script in there for both of those. And now whenever I click on triangle, whenever I'm doing the triangle that faces this direction, I can now pull the script out of my backpack and drop it on the block. And now this triangle will work the same way that the dome did. So by having that backpack feature, it allows me to recreate code that I've already done without actually having to go through the whole process again. So your goal for Monday's assignment is that you have to create this script. Additionally, you have to put it in a backpack and be able to use it for all these shapes, so that on Monday, when I'm grading your assignment, or on Tuesday really, because I'll give you the assignment Monday, it's due Tuesday. Whenever I click on each one of these shapes, I should be able to do the same thing that I did with the dome. Well, that's it for today's lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, you are free to go.